Hey friends, Susan Kane here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the president and founder of Unbridled Thoroughbred Foundation. Today is Saturday, May 7th. It is the running of the 148th Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby is a very special event to me for multiple reasons. Beginning in 1971, when Ken Naro ran to victory, and I, as a little tiny girl, lay on the living room floor in front of the big Magnavox TV in our home, I felt like thoroughbreds ran right into my heart. Since that day, I have been head over heels in love with thoroughbreds. I've sought to create a life that was centered around everything horses, and most especially the thoroughbreds, whether it be from showing in the show ring, retraining off the track thoroughbreds. For years, my mother was involved with racing and breeding, and starting with the founding of the New York Thoroughbred Breeding Program. And as she became more involved in that, so did I. I became a student of pedigree and really felt that I would spend the whole of my life involved in thoroughbred racing and breeding. And again, in 1990, the Kentucky Derby made such an impact on me when Unbridled ran to victory. And it wasn't so much his victory, but it was that precious moment that was shown all over the world in the clubhouse when Carl Nafzger was telling Mrs. Genter that she was winning the Kentucky Derby. She was 90-something years old, and she'd spent her whole life breeding thoroughbreds and in pursuit of the Derby. And here it was at a time in her life when her vision was failing, and she was sitting there like this, and Mr. Nafzger was telling her, "We're winning, we're winning, we're winning." It's an iconic moment in racing history. And it is that which Unbridled Thoroughbred Foundation is named after. It is that which I chose the name Unbridled for the TV series that I hosted and produced for 10 years to share the magnificence and the joy of horses and the enrichment that they bring to the human experience. And now fast forward to 2022. In the stable here at Unbridled, I'm surrounded by 39 horses, mostly thoroughbreds, all saved from abuse, neglect, slaughter, breakdown on the racetrack. They have come from the worst circumstances and situations where they had no say in their own fate. And I put up a post a few days ago that said, when the Derby's going off, I won't be watching it. And the reason being is that I'll be in the stable with the horses. Horses that have been owned by, trained by, bred by the same people who are winning the Kentucky Derby, participants in the Kentucky Derby, have placed in the Derby in years past, and are very successful in the thoroughbred world. And yet, when their horses faced a deadline and needed a lifeline in the slaughter pipeline, they were nowhere to be found to contribute to save that horse and contribute to his or her future. And until thoroughbred racing truly takes a stand for the horses first and begins to turn the table and front load the long-term economic reality of owning and breeding and bringing into this world and using thoroughbreds for racing for a short period of their 30-year natural lifespan, the unmerciful killing will continue. I don't know that we can ever legislate an end to the killing of horses. Maybe they won't be shipped for slaughter at some point in this future, but that won't stop an owner from prematurely euthanizing them or euthanizing them for convenience. I'm surrounded by horses who were dumped into the slaughter pipeline by active participants who are breeding, owning, and racing. That is fact-checked, that is verifiable. And friends, for those of you out there who say, "Oh, Susan, you don't know what you're talking about. The thoroughbred industry does more for its breed than any other breed." Well, why shouldn't they? And don't forget, friends, I've spent the better part of my life involved in racing and breeding. As I said, It was my dream to spend my whole life involved in the sport of kings. But when I found out how marginalized and vulnerable the horses were and the lack of protection that they truly had, that is when the advocate in me was born. As a young child, I stood in the stall with Exceller at Gainesway Farm when John Gaines was alive. John Gaines was the founder of the Breeders' Cup. My mother owned shares in Exceller. We bought and sold horses with TaylorMade Farm. We pinhooked horses. I spent much time at Keeneland, at Saratoga, and the world's most prestigious race meets and sales all over the country, all over the world, as an active participant. I know what goes on in thoroughbred racing and breeding, and not everybody is a bad person. I don't have an issue with the people. I have an issue with the processes. I have an issue with the protocols. I have an issue with the lack of mandating certain things for the protections of the horses. I have an issue with the fact that why isn't there a zero tolerance policy when owners, trainers, and breeders' horses continually show up in kill pens and no investigation is followed through on? Nothing is checked out. These people just continue on and on and on. And while the industry is proud of itself, hanging up Bob Baffert, in the public eye and censoring him, sanctioning Bob Baffert will not fix the problem. It's window dressing for the racing industry to make it look like they're doing something about people who have drug violations. There's trainers all over this country with an extremely high death rate, with a ton of drug violations. They don't even get a slap on the wrist. So the problem I have is with the hypocrisy that comes from the racing industry. What I see as a former insider, as a former breeder, owner, and trainer, is an industry that still remains most interested in protecting and upholding its image, as opposed to truly making meaningful change that makes a difference for good in the lives of horses who this sport is built upon. Why are we racing 2-year-olds? Why are horses raced until they break down? That's the factor that determines their retirement. I'm surrounded by horses at Unbridled Stable who have earned hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have earned tens of thousands of dollars in breeders' awards. They raced, they did all that was asked of them until they broke down on the racetrack, and they were left lamed and maimed for the rest of their lives. And their past connections, who made tons of money on them, have not contributed a dime to their safety, their security, and their comfort in sanctuary at Unbridled. This is among the many things that needs to change in this industry to demonstrate that the horses are truly put first and foremost. And pushback will come and say, Susan, why aren't you a member of the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance? I'll tell you exactly why I'm not a member. Even though financially, protocol, practice, and equine care-wise, Unbridled exceeds the standards for accreditation, I will not agree to uphold the integrity of horse racing in all of my communications, nor shed a positive light on horse racing in all of my communications and all that I do in education. The reason being, I don't think the industry does near enough. I don't think that Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance is helping more horses than it's hurting. I'm surrounded by 39 horses right now and hundreds of more thoroughbreds who Unbridled has helped that have not received a dime of support through TAA because we're not accredited. Again, not accredited because when I am testifying at Senate hearings or Congress or lobbying on the Hill for the Horse Racing Integrity Act, for changes to be made, it says to me that there is a lack of integrity in the industry. And for funding to be conditioned upon upholding an integrity that doesn't exist is to me nothing more than hush money. So the thoroughbreds that we help, which are many, which are famous, which are notable in many ways, are all funded by individual donors who truly value the lives of these horses. They see the inherent worth in Fudge Ripple over my shoulder, a granddaughter of Affirmed, who was left bleeding, dying, broken, and starving on a feedlot in North Carolina. They see the true worth of Zoom Zoom Zelda, who's next to her, a granddaughter of Exceller from the family of John Henry, who zooms into classrooms with enrichment lessons and teaches students about kindness and compassion. There is great work that our thoroughbreds do and bring out into the world, and yet the industry itself does not accredit Unbridled Thoroughbred Foundation because we're too outspoken about drugging, abuse, and slaughter. And that we will continue to be until that horror ends for these beautiful, magnificent beings who have given all that has been asked of them, even to their own detriment. Friends, there's so much more that needs to be done for thoroughbreds, and the deception that's coming out of the industry, cloaked in the name of aftercare, is not helping the majority of thoroughbreds who need help every single day. As the Kentucky Derby opens its starting gates, there will be hundreds of horses, thoroughbreds, across this country who are shipping across the border, who are standing in feedlots, who are sired by the same families, the same ancestry as the horses that are going around the oval at Churchill Downs. Their legs didn't run fast enough. Somebody wasn't there to protect them. And they will ship across the border to Mexico or into Canada, where they will be brutally butchered. They will be violently killed, murdered for the meat on their bones. They come from the same families as every single thoroughbred that will be racing in the Kentucky Derby today. All thoroughbreds come from three main horses back in the late 1700s and early 1800s, the Byerly Turk, the Darley Arabian, and the Godolphin Barb. So in one way or another, they're all related. When they're bred into this world and registered at the Jockey Club, it's for the purpose of racing. And I believe that if you're going to play, you should pay for the lifespan of that horse, and if that horse ever needs a lifeline, that you are there to help that horse, that you have the means to do so. If you don't, find another way to get involved, because horses are living, breathing, emotional, intelligent, fellow sentient beings. Play with an inanimate object. Gamble on an inanimate object. These are real, living, breathing lives. We're surrounded by them, and the kids that come in here for our education programs cannot believe how they were broken on the racetrack and how they were thrown away in the slaughter pipeline. And until that issue is honestly, meaningfully addressed by the thoroughbred industry, you won't see me watching the Kentucky Derby or supporting horse racing. Whether horse racing continues to exist or not is up to racing and the decisions that they make. I'm on a mission to protect horses from harm, to see that they are respected and they are appreciated throughout the whole of their natural lifespan. I need your help to do it. I appreciate your help in the accomplishments that we've made thus far. But I just wanted to be clear, friends, why I won't be watching the Kentucky Derby. There's some great articles out there sharing from other people in the same position that I'm in and was in. I exercised on the racetrack for many, many years. Galloped horses, most euphoric feeling in the whole wide world. But when you understand the toll it takes on racing horses at 2, on drugging lame horses to race, on drugging horses so that they run beyond their physiological capabilities, and all the things that are done to horses, all the horses who die on the racetrack and die in training, it really loses its luster. If any other sport would had as many athletes die on the playing field as horse racing, that sport would be brought to a halt. Where is the respect for our horses? Where is the, whoa, we have a lot to fix here? There's no reason any horse should be racing on drugs. Absolutely not. And there's no reason that any horse should ever be relegated for meat and sent into the slaughter pipeline. So until those things change, friends, you'll find me advocating on the front lines for horses. You'll find me in the stable taking care of the ones we are so privileged to be able to save. Thank you so much for listening, friends. Have a great Saturday, and I'll be back with you soon.